ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Philip, Khalid, Mohammad, it's a pleasure to have you here on stage today.
Thank you.
I'm sure the audience is very interested to get a brief update on where we stand across the individual countries which are presented today on stage. Maybe we start very briefly with providing the audience with an update on the current status of your individual projects and the development of the rail network in your countries. Philip, if you may start first.
In Oman, we've started working on a domestic line in the southwest area from connecting the port of Duqm into a mining area. What we're trying to do is with the GCC project, we're still very committed to it. The timelines have been agreed to. We have our preliminary designs developed. The alignments are protected within the country. But as we wait for that project to continue, we're working on domestic lines. And this is the mineral line we're discussing. It's approximately 500 kilometers long. And as I said, it connects the port of Duqm into the mineral-rich areas of the Dhofar region. It's going to be a heavy bulk. We're following the GCC guidelines as our minimum. But because we're moving bulk rather than the original forecasted traffic, we're looking for 40-ton axle load. We're going to design our infrastructure to handle much heavier product. So, and as we go along with this, we're looking at various opportunities to include private sector, off-takers, potential miners, and financial institutions for investment.
Okay, so this is now on your end the first focus currently to building that mineral line from Tumray to the port of Duqm.
Correct. That's our primary focus at this time.
Okay. Thank you very much. Khalid.
When it comes to Saudi Arabia, the country is fully committed to deliver its part of the GCC. The GCC network in Saudi Arabia is around 600 kilometers. 200 of it is already under construction. In fact, 80 kilo of it is currently under operation for our mineral Wa'ad al-Shamal operation. The other 120 is in the final stage of constructions. When it's come to the remaining 400 kilo, which is include the connection with the other countries, is in the final stage of the design. Upon the completion of that design, we'll prepare the tender packages to implement it for construction.
Okay. Very interesting. Thank you also for that understanding. Mohammed, if you give us also a brief outview, what's the current status of PART, the Public Authority of Roads and Transport in Kuwait?
Yes, thank you. Regarding the train project in Kuwait, the length of the network around 270 kilometers. The GCC components, which start from the border of Saudi Arabia to the middle of Kuwait city, is around 110 kilometers, and then there is a cargo component from the city to the port in the north. Is around 160 kilometers. We finished the alignment on the corridor for the project. Already we have a resolution from the city council, and we are now in the process of tendering it to a consultant in order to shortlist the consortiums that will bid for the projects.
Okay, thank you very much. Very interesting to get a brief update on where you currently stand. How important do you see in your individual railway network development and partially also the road transport development, the participation of private players? Philip.
I think private players are going to become more and more important in the region, as we're seeing. The infusion of not only their financial aspect of it, but the expertise they can bring into it as well to supplement. Saudi Arabia has a lot of experience now in the rail industry, as we know, but areas like Oman, where we're starting out fresh, they can bring an added value coming in from the private industry.
So on your end, it's a dedicated part of the mineral line as well, I understand?
Specifically to the mineral line is what
yes,
I'm thinking.
Yes. Khalid.
Yeah, I would say the private sector will play a major role since it will help driving things into being more efficient, more reliable, than follow certain bureaucratic system where things take more than usual. Because the private, it just will have a clear map and we'll make sure that it will stick to it and ensure everything is on track to deliver the roadmap originally planned.
How concrete are the involvements of the private sector on your behalf?
So earlier, toward the end of last year, along with our colleague in the BTA Public Transportation Agency, we've started sort of initiatives to involve the private sectors. We've received a huge interest in it. Based on that interest in the market review, we're currently developing this package that will definitely will be interesting for the private sector to be part of the railway industry in Saudi Arabia.
Well, on your end, also, most likely it'll be also a little bit easier as such with the private sector involvement, given that you have partially a running network. So that also, of course, enables a little bit more the discussion about the potential risk sharing for within PPP contracts as such, right?
Exactly. As they say, seeing is believing. So having a train operation always helps to sell your product to the private sector.
Okay. Mohammad, on your end, of course, it's sort of right in the nascent stage of establishing the whole network. What are your thoughts at this point of time of involving private sector?
For sure, when we tender it through the private and public authority, private and public partnership authority, we are involving private sector from day one. So because of this kind of projects, you will transfer the risk from the government to the private sector. And the private sector will start planning and executing as well as exercising and training the Kuwaitis and to take over the project. So we are, I think, not like the regular way of tendering it by through the government, just you pay and that's it. But we will have them participate in their money and in their efforts. And this will help us in order to get the technology and as well as to get the best management from the private sector.
Okay. Does that hold true for all transport modes, or are there some areas which you say are the primary ones?
Now it is for the train, yes, but for the metro we haven't decided which package will be like this. But I hope that when we succeed in this one, we will generalize it to be for the metro as well.
Okay.
Because now even the countries that already took over as a government managing the transport, they are seeking now to privatize this sector.
Okay. Thank you very much for that insights. If we move towards the project execution on your end, partially already in construction phases, here in the preliminary design and engineering phases, what do you see are the key challenges as part of the project execution? If you think about the network you're developing, where do you see sort of the key project challenges to overcome?
I think from a GCC point of view, and also domestically, the challenge is to continue to look for best practices, to take what we see around the world and what we can apply, especially because we're in greenfield construction areas, to not go back to old technology, old thought processes, but to open up our minds and look for the best way to move the product. We've got the opportunity here now. We don't want to lose it.
Okay. From your experience already so far, what were the areas where you say that was most difficult to deal with?
There's a lot of lesson learned from the project we've did, but given the length of the projects and the distance of it, I would say the biggest challenge is that usually stakeholder management. We're usually compared to road construction, which is kind of correct when it's come to the earthwork formation. But when it's come to stakeholders and the entity you interfere with, they usually welcome roads because they're going to gain advantage of, but they're not that welcoming when it's come to railway. So resolving those in the early stage of the design and making sure that other entities will have full understanding of your construction plan and how that's not going to affect their operation nor their maintenance will help you make sure that you will not have any obstacles during the project construction that will end up delaying your project.
Okay, interesting. Mohammad.
Regarding the obstacles for the project that we face?
Yeah, what do you see if in the early stages are key challenges? Similar to what we discussed.
I think the first challenge, first of all, to have the alignment for the project because it's passing like 270 kilos, so you are passing like lands for oil companies, lands for the defense, and lands for private lands. The first challenge was to secure the alignment, which has been done for us in Kuwait. The second one is the financial build-up for the project. The finance is very important. That's one of the reasons why all the GCC countries postponed the first ultimatum was 2018, and now it's almost between 2021 to 2023. And I think the third thing is to get the best technology, because the technology in transportation is, developed every year. So by the time you want to design, and this year maybe the time you will get it will be a little bit, you are one generation less than that. So I think the most important thing is to get the ultimatum solution for the technology.
Yeah, you need to, as such, as you said, constantly stay on top of what is happening on a technological end. We heard stakeholder alignment, financing as well. I think that's obvious. If you look forward at the projects you're currently building on, what are the core customer focus that you have for these projects? In terms of obviously it's clearly primarily a dedicated cargo rail, but
I think what has to be very important here is it can't be a gold-plated railway. It's got to be a fit-for-purpose railway in our regard. We're moving bulk minerals, low yield, so every penny counts. That said, the customer, we have to have the offtake, we have to have the miners, the railway. An overall logistics system is going to be fundamental to making this line work. And that will include, as I say, the customers and all the various parts of the supply chain and the logistics supply chain.
So this basically approach is very much involving the customer. As you said, this could even be part of the consortium as such, right?
Exactly. They could be part of the consortium. They could be part of the SPP as we develop, if it is a PPP model that we end up with.
Okay. Khalid, what is the area of your focus
I
on?
will say cargo and trade will benefit a lot from the GCC connectivity. There is a lot of tracking between the two countries, and by providing alternative, safe, cost-efficient method will allow the trade to be more feasible between countries and introduce more feasible prices.
Okay, obvious. Mohammad, on your end, maybe more focus on passenger with regards to the urban transport?
No, I think according to the pre-development study for Kuwait, the cargo generates more than 70% of the revenue. So I think the cargo is very important.
Okay.
I think the second thing which is very important is to ease this transport. The transportation and rails in GCC countries is a new concept. We are just in the first level. So first of all, people must understand that this is a good mean of transport to replace the cars or the planes. Secondly, I think it's very important to integrate this with the other transportation system that you have in the country, like the airports and the other metro if you have any. That's the most important thing. Just the train, it doesn't stand alone. The train is part of a schematic strategy for the transportation. So it has to be integrated with the others. That's the most important challenge for the planners for the train.
So connectivity as a core point, which you're mentioning, of course.
That's very important. Yes.
Also for the railway work, of course, cargo focus, for the metro, of course, then focus on passenger. These are interesting thoughts. Now, if you think about the solution you're developing for the customers, how close is the cooperation between the individual member countries? What are the challenges you're using in order to align yourself on what you're building?
The GCC team continues to work together. The expert working groups are still very much a part of the project. Although 2 years ago the project went on hold, the expert working groups continue to operate behind the scenes to improve on interoperability. The guidelines are established, the minimum guidelines are established. What we're doing in Oman is we will continue to build to that. Anything we will build will be interoperable to the rest of the GCC. So as I say, the expert working groups, the three of them are still meeting, ensuring interoperability to the highest level.
Which three expert working groups are this? I think it'd be interesting also.
Well,
for
we
the
have the
audience.
institutional group, we have the technology group, and also the operations group as they meet. And that is going to ensure that we continue with the project as one team.
Okay.
Yeah, as Philip said, that there is a current different groups and workshops that Saudi Arabia also participate in, and we send our experts to it to make sure that the outcome of those and all the technical specification is as per the Saudi standards we currently have, and I'm sure also it integrate with other specification in other countries to make sure when the lines are built there wouldn't be any engagement between the two lines.
Yeah, in this issue, there are a lot of technical committees between the countries, a lot of cooperation. We most likely agreed on everything from the gauges to the speed to safety factors. We will follow one of the manuals, maybe European, or they have to agree. And there is, I think, now a seed committee to establish what is called the GCC Railway Company or Railway Authority. That will regulate the relation between the countries regarding the train. And I think it's in the process.
Yeah, there's also been some progress in this end, so this is let's say, also in the make. Yeah?
Yes.
I think it's very interesting to hear from you, Philip, that also over the past 2 years, where initially there was quite a slowdown in the progress, the expert working groups continued to work together. I think that's it's a very, very good news also to see that this cooperation did not slow down. What would you see are the topics where there's still the biggest need for alignment between the individual countries?
I think what's happening now, we'll be meeting even during this event, is to start working on interoperability on the customs side of it, inspection side of it, cross-border operation. We're looking at various models that can be followed, the European model with OTIF/COTIF, that type of system. We have to start aligning ourselves. The member state companies or railway operators have to start aligning themselves in that under the tutelage of the GCC SG.
Yeah, in order to allow a seamless flow of goods and passengers, of course, that's a very important point. Khalid, from your perspective.
I would say we need to finalize all the specs and everything and sort of put in all the missing dots. Also agreeing on the forecast traffics between the countries and how it's going to operate, also through the customs, how things are going to be managed. Since those are going to be quite challenging operationally, that it's always good to start earlier and make sure that everything is resolved up on hand.
Yeah. And there's also ongoing discussion, I understand,
yes.
on the customs topics, as such.
Yeah, still regarding custom and the security and safety regulations, still we haven't finalized that, but we are in the process to finalize. There is agreement, there is a framework to work in it, and there's timetable. There are some delays in the timetable to agree on this, but it's ongoing between the countries.
Very good, very good. Gentlemen, I think thank you very much for the interesting insights. We heard where you stand currently with a focus on the mineral line in Oman, the further establishment of the railway network in Saudi Arabia, and also the ongoing progress in Kuwait. I think this was very interesting to hear for the audience. Also that the level of collaboration is actually even stronger than before. So in that sense, I think that reflects quite well also, let's say, the new spirit of driving forward the railway networks domestically as well as across the GCC, so that we will see hopefully soon the GCC railway mainline. While we didn't, let's say, address the exact question of when the GCC railway mainline will be operational exactly, I think we have definitely seen how this in the meantime has taken further forms and progress, and as such I appreciate your openness and your insights. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.